So if anyone's seen my previous video, I would have walked through essentially a process that will save smaller companies in Ireland that do not use a payroll software time when inputting employee expenses into ROS for the new enhanced reporting requirements. I said in that video I'll create a separate video where I'll go through the process from start to finish, so that's what this video is. If you didn't see the video, essentially what I'm going to cover here is I helped a client fully digitalize a couple of processes, one of them being employee expense submission. What the client was previously doing was using a Microsoft Word form that the employee would have to print out, sign it, upload receipts in an email with that signed Microsoft Word form, email it to an approver. That approver would then need to recalculate it and then also then send it to a finance line manager who would then approve it to be included within the next payroll. So a fairly manual process. What the tools that we used is, the first one you're looking at is the actual expense form. We use Microsoft Forms for that. Just removes the need to print it out and actually sign it with a pen. And then you can leverage Microsoft Forms using Power Automate and Power BI and SharePoint to fully digitalize the whole process. So starting off with the form itself, you can see here, essentially, this is it. Before I'm going to fill it out, but just 1 second, I'll just scroll through in this view here. It's a little bit better. So you can see here, there's a couple of options here. So the first option is you have to put in the month and your engine capacity. If it's a mileage expense claim, your balance brought forward and this claim and then carried forward. If you've had 1 or 2 journeys, you need to put that data in. Subsistence, you can also upload receipts. A lot of people don't know you can do that within Microsoft Forms, which is very beneficial. I'll show how we then upload that into Power BI, and then any other receipts or any other expenses. So what we'll do is we'll actually just fill it out as if we're going to fill an expense, do an expense submission. So I'm going to fill this out. So I'm going to say test SB. I think I did 3 of them, so I'll just do 4. Month will be January, up to 1,501 cc. Next, balance brought forward, let's just say 1,000. This claim, let's just say 300. So that would obviously make that be 1,300. Let's say, so our first journey is going to be travel vouched from Castle Blaney to, let's just say, Dundalk, and let's say training. So then rate per kilometer. Power BI will do these checks. So you have a rate per kilometer. If you go back here, this is the rates that you would be picking based off your CC and how many kilometers you've clocked up. Power BI will recalculate these calculations for you. You would have seen it on the previous video, and you'll see it now in a couple of minutes if you haven't watched that video. So let's just say 40 kilometers, that would be €20. So then next. We didn't have any other journeys that we did in this month, so let's click next there. Subsistence, again, vouched, let's say it was today. Details, let's just say lunch. Total would be 20. Then again, this is where you can upload receipts. So I have a receipts folder here. I'm just going to upload one just so you can see it in Power BI. So this sometimes takes a second to actually upload, more so on a laptop rather than a phone. And the beauty again about this process is you can do this on a phone now. So previously it was essentially impossible to do an employee expense submission on a phone, but now you can. So if we click next there, let's pretend we don't have any other receipts. So we go to next. This part here is your total claim amount. So your travel 1, travel 2, which is subtotal A and B, subsistence, which is subtotal C, and then any other expenses, which would be subtotal D. They obviously have to sum up to be your total claim amount, which you enter in here. And again, Power BI does that check in the back end. So I think it was 20 and 20, which is €40. So let's click next and let's submit that then into Forms. So now the flow will kick off. So you'll see an email drop into my email now any second, which will essentially be sent to the approver. Now I've picked it to be sent to myself just in this instance here. So you see the email drop in there. So you click in here. This is an automated email to let you know there has been an expense request, and it picks up the name and the month. The total amount requested, you have a link to the receipts folder, and it asks to basically please approve or reject this at your earliest convenience within the approvals app within Teams. Now, people might be wondering how is this automated? And this is Power Automate. So if I go back over here and go to Power Automate, I'm not going to go through this flow. It's probably another another video for that, because you can see it's fairly detailed here. But this is Power Automate. So the first thing you have, and I'll be covering these types of flows on the Power Platform in a Day course. So if you are interested in Power Automate, you've never used it, I know some people don't even know that it exists, then that course would be fairly good for you, just to give you an insight into Power Automate and how you can use it. But yeah, this is working in the back end. So these are all triggers. So the first trigger is when someone puts data into that form, I want to get the details, and then I want to send an email, which is here. But I have some conditions in here as well, and some steps in between. Again, this is for a separate video. If there's a demand for it, I could easily create another video where I maybe just go through how all of this is set up. But going back to the email here, you can see then also a link to the receipts folder. I have the receipt on the Power BI report, so I wouldn't really use this that much, but it's still good to have that there. So if I go back then to the email, I'll have another email now. Excuse me, I went to Teams by accident. I'll have another email, again, go to the first approver, that would then ask them to basically approve or reject this. So you can see here, expense form approval from Sean Buckley. You can also see a notification in Teams as well. If you wanted to click in there, you'd see that there as well. So you can see here. It's taking a second to load. There. So you can see I have an expense form approval waiting there. So where do you go then if you're the approver, and where is time saved on their side? So if I jump over to Power BI, it's going to be in the first page. So again, if you've seen the previous video, you'll know already that there's two basically pages within this Power BI report. The first one is used for approvers to basically approve or reject expenses. And the second one is whenever expenses are approved, then that's the data you need to input into ROS for the ERR reporting. So we're going to focus on the first page, but the first thing we're going to do is we're going to refresh the data set to make sure that we're bringing in that latest entry from the form. So this can be done with Power BI. You can set up 8 to 9 refreshes a day. So that's what would be done in the back end here. And you might not have to do this manual refresh depending on how often you need the data. If it's more than 8 or 9 times a day, you might have to do a manual refresh. So if we go in here, we should see now, so if I undo that, we should see a test 4 in here. So if I scroll down here, I have to reload this actually, which is the visuals themselves on Power BI with the latest data. So again, scroll in there. So you can see test SB4, and you can see here now, so let's pretend we're the approver. The first place you look is here. So has the claim been summed up correctly? Is the journey 1 rate correct? Is the journey 2 rate correct? If all 3 of those are yes, then you can basically approve the expense once you vouch this receipt. So if there's a receipt in here, if it's subsistence, you can also see the images, which is what I mentioned. So there you can see, no need to watch it load, but you can see the image there. So yeah, this is where the approver would save a lot of time. No need to do the recalculations themselves. They can see all of the underlying data in here, and these checks are done automatically for them. So if we go back to the email, and if we say, okay, we're happy to, again, this can be done within Teams either, we're happy to approve that, and we can put in comments if we wanted, but we're not going to put in comments. So, and you can see here, you can give a little note. So is it rejected because the mileage is not calculated, or is it rejected because the amount does not match all of the subtotals? So you could select whatever one you want. I'm going to approve this so you can see the full flow in action. I'm going to submit. That's then going to go to the finance manager. And whenever that goes to the finance manager, who is me in this example, they're also going to get a same email notification. And also a notification in Teams. So you can see now I have a second notifications in Teams in here. So if I click in this, it takes a second to load. So now I have another approval notification, and let's say I approve this. So If I come back out there, now the basically expense is fully approved within SharePoint, and that's where the underlying data is. So if I just jump to SharePoint here, we're also utilizing SharePoint. This is storing the Microsoft Forms data, which is then connected to Power BI. So if I reload this SharePoint list, you'll see at the bottom of the list there'll be an entry for test 4, which you can see here. And now the first approval and second approval is both approved. So then if we jump over to Power BI and we go to the second page, before refreshing, that data won't be there because I haven't done a manual refresh since then. So what we'll do is we'll go back out again, we'll do that refresh, and then you'll see that basically test 4 data showing up on the ERR page, because now that expense has been fully approved and we're then ready to enter that into the ROS section of the revenue website on or before the date of the payment to that employee for their expenses. So again, you just have to remember to refresh the visuals here. Sometimes there can be a little bit of a lag, maybe for like a minute or two, but most of the time it should show up after you do that refresh of the visual, which you can see here. So again, now this is where you would then use, if you've seen the previous video, you would then be in ROS looking at the inputs, and you would be like, okay, travel 1, vouch, unvouched, you would sum these two up. Actually, you don't need to put in separate journeys into ROS, it's just the total travel amount. And then subsistence as well, which is a separate category, and you do need to say is it vouched or unvouched. And you can see here this KPI card basically picks up did a user input vouched or unvouched when they were filling out the form. And then you can obviously filter through each employee when you're looking through this data whenever you're inputting it into ROS. So a lot of time saved on both the approver side and also in the process whenever you're inputting this data into ROS, which again the previous video covers in detail, so no need to spend that much time on that. So yeah, if this is a process that your company could do with, please feel free to reach out. And then again, if there is a demand, I can go through how to basically set some of those Power Automate steps up, which really help things in the back end with essentially automation and taking the manual entry out of a lot of those processes and tasks.